Imagine you're going to the doctor. You've got this weird, persistent cough. Maybe there's a skin lesion on your arm that you're a little worried about.
Right, something you just want them to look
Yeah.
at.
And your doctor also wants to schedule you for a routine abdominal MRI just to check on a past issue. Now imagine that behind the scenes, instead of your medical team relying on 5 different, highly specialized, totally disconnected computer programs to analyze your chest x-rays, your skin, and your scan, your doctor just has one single, highly adaptable AI assistant doing it all.
One unified tool for everything.
Exactly. We are talking about an assistant that can seamlessly bounce from looking at the lobes of a lung to analyzing the borders of a mole to outlining an organ on an MRI, and then turning around and writing up a cohesive doctor-level report about all of it. Welcome to today's deep dive, where we are looking at the exact technology that is pulling this scenario out of science fiction and making it a reality.
It really is a massive shift in how we approach healthcare technology. I mean, we are looking at some genuinely groundbreaking new research today that completely changes the paradigm of what medical software can actually do.
We absolutely are. We have a brand new, frankly incredible research article published just last week on March 5, 2026. It's in NEJM AI.
The New England Journal of Medicine's AI journal.
Yes, their dedicated artificial intelligence journal. The paper is titled MedVersa, a generalist foundation model for diverse medical imaging tasks. And it is authored by an incredibly impressive team of researchers from Harvard Medical School, Tsinghua University, and several other top-tier institutions.
And our mission for this deep dive is to explore exactly how this new model, MedVersa, is actively moving medical artificial intelligence away from these narrow, one-trick pony applications. We're stepping into a flexible, multimodal future. We want to figure out how this technology actually works under the hood, how it manages to juggle all these different tasks without dropping the ball, and most importantly, what this massive shift means for your future healthcare experiences as a patient.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really appreciate the leap that MedVersa represents, we have to look at the current state of medical AI. Right now, the status quo is, well, it's incredibly fragmented.
Highly fragmented.
The vast majority of FDA-approved medical AI products are what you'd call hyper-specialized. You have one multi-million-dollar model that is strictly trained to look for pneumonia in chest x-rays. You have another totally separate model built by a different company that only knows how to classify skin diseases.
Which sounds great in theory, right? Having an expert for everything. But a task-specific approach is fundamentally rigid. It simply does not match the complex, messy reality of real-world healthcare settings.
It's just not how medicine works.
No, not at all. Think about it from the perspective of a doctor who is trying to treat you on a busy Tuesday afternoon. If they have to open 5 different software applications, manually feed different types of medical images into each one, and then try to cognitively synthesize 5 different isolated reports into one cohesive diagnosis, that is incredibly inefficient.
Yeah, that's exhausting.
It adds to their cognitive load. It makes their job harder, not easier.
Which brings us to the solution the researchers are proposing in this paper, GMAI, or Generalist Medical Artificial Intelligence.
Right. Now, the concept of a generalist AI isn't entirely new, but until now, these GMAI models were mostly built purely on natural language processing.
Just text.
Exactly. They were essentially just very smart medical text generators. That made them quite good at what we call vision language tasks, like looking at an X-ray and writing a basic caption for it. But they were notoriously bad at purely vision-centric tasks.
Like actually pinpointing the problem on the image itself?
Yes. If you ask these older models to find the exact spatial location of a tumor, a task we call detection, or to precisely trace the outline of a kidney in a scan, which is called segmentation, they would completely struggle.
They just didn't know how to look.
Right, they didn't have the underlying architecture to handle complex spatial visual data effectively. They could talk about the image, but they couldn't really interact with the image.
Enter MedVersa. And to fix that exact spatial awareness problem, the researchers clearly knew they couldn't hold back on the training data. The sheer scale of what MedVersa learned from is mind-blowing.
It's an unprecedented volume of data. They compiled 29 million medical instances from 91 different public data sets into a massive collection they call MedInter.
29 million.
Yes. Just to give you a sense of the scale and variety here, they fed it over 370,000 chest x-rays from a data set called MIMC-XR. They gave it over 10,000 high-resolution dermatoscopic images of skin lesions, and they included hundreds of thousands of visual question-answering pairs.
What are those exactly?
Those are basically stress tests, where the AI looks at a complex medical image and has to answer a highly specific, text-based question about what it's seeing.
But having a massive library of data doesn't automatically make you a genius. It's how you access and process that data. The paper uses a really fascinating analogy to explain MedVersa's architecture. Instead of just trying to force one giant neural network to do both the reading and the seeing, MedVersa uses a large language model, specifically a version of Llama 2 Chat. And they use it as what they call an optimizable orchestrator.
Which is a brilliant structural choice. It basically acts like a head chef in a chaotic, high-end restaurant kitchen.
I want to stick with the chef analogy for a second because it really clarifies things. So the large language model, our head chef, is standing at the front of the kitchen. It takes in the visual and text inputs, which is basically the order ticket from the customer. It analyzes what needs to be done. Then the chef makes a crucial decision.
Right. The chef asks, Can I handle this task myself, like writing up a descriptive clinical report? Or do I need to route this ticket to one of my highly specialized prep stations?
And those prep stations are for the vision stuff.
Exactly. For those vision tasks, the outlining, the detecting, it relies on specialized visual networks called UNets. Those are the sous chefs who only handle the knife work.
But wait, if the language model is the head chef, isn't there a massive risk that it misinterprets the order before the vision tools even get a chance to touch it? Like if the chef reads the ticket wrong, the whole kitchen crashes, right?
That is the exact vulnerability the researchers had to solve. And the way they solved it is through a highly specific internal tagging system.
Yep.
When the orchestrator decides it needs a sous chef, it generates a specific trigger tag. If it needs to find a pathology, it generates a DDT tag for detection. If it needs to outline a lung on a flat 2D image, it generates a 2D seg tag. For a complex 3D scan, it uses a 3D seg tag.
So it's literally calling out the exact tool needed for the job.
Precisely. And to answer your question about the risk of misinterpretation, during their internal validation, the orchestrator chose the correct task tag in 99.2% of vision-centric cases.
Wow.
It almost never gets confused about what tool it needs to pull from the drawer. It is an incredibly robust routing system.
That accuracy is wild, 99.2%. And this specific architecture, having a language model act as the conductor of the orchestra, leads us right into a concept the researchers spent a lot of time on, called generalist learning.
What's fascinating here is the underlying philosophy of how learning actually works. The researchers discovered that teaching the AI to do both language tasks and vision tasks simultaneously doesn't distract it. It actually makes it vastly better at doing everything.
Yes, this is where we need to dive into the philosophy of this because it blew my mind. When the AI learns to talk about what it's seeing, it actually gets better at seeing the image in the first place.
Think about it like human child development. When a toddler first sees a dog, they just see a blob of visual information, a moving shape. But when you teach that toddler the word dog and the word tail and the word fur, their brain starts to categorize the visual input differently.
Right, the words map to the vision.
Exactly. The language provides a structural framework for their vision. They start noticing the tail because they have a word for it.
That is a perfect way to look at it. The AI is essentially talking itself through the visual problem, which sharpens its spatial awareness. And the researchers didn't just theorize this, they proved it with hard numbers.
They absolutely did. They measured the quality of the medical text the AI was generating using a scoring system called RAD-CLIQ. RAD-CLIQ evaluates both the clinical accuracy and the lexical quality. Basically, it asks, does this report make medical sense, and does it sound like an actual radiologist wrote it?
And a lower score is better on that metric, right?
Yeah.
Because it measures the error rate.
Correct. They found that this generalist learning approach led to a 6.4% improvement on the RAD-CLIQ metric compared to models that were only trained on vision language data without the specialized tasks.
And it goes the other way, too. When they looked at the vision-centric tasks, the physical outlining and detecting, adding that linguistic text-based supervision, resulted in an additional 5.3% performance gain over models that were trained only on vision tasks.
A rising tide that lifts all boats.
Exactly. The language gives context to the vision, just like a medical student in a cadaver lab. You don't just stare at the tissue, you learn the vocabulary, and the vocabulary tells your eyes what to look for.
Exactly. Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture of AI development, you might assume that training a model to do all of this simultaneous complex learning would require an absolute behemoth of a supercomputer running for 6 months straight.
Right. You'd think the compute cost would be astronomical. But I was stunned by this detail in the methodology. The entire MedVersa model was trained on just 24 standard high-end graphics cards, NVIDIA A100, in exactly 72 hours, 3 days.
Which is practically overnight in the world of machine learning foundation models.
How is that even possible?
They achieved this incredible efficiency using a training technique called LoRa, low-rank adaptation. Instead of making the AI read the entire medical library all over again and rewrite every single thing it knows from scratch, LoRa basically lets the system just read the cliff notes for the new material. It only updates a tiny, crucial fraction of the model's brain.
That efficiency isn't just a cool party trick, though. It actually matters for the listener.
It matters immensely. If we want medical AI to be truly useful, it needs to constantly update and learn from new diseases. Imagine a new pandemic. Or it needs to adapt to a brand new type of MRI machine. The training process has to be efficient. You cannot wait 6 months for a hospital's AI to learn a new skill.
Okay, so we have this highly efficient, fast-learning generalist. It sounds great on paper, but that efficiency makes me wonder how it survives in the wild against AIs that have literally one job to do. In Section 3 of our deep dive, we get to the technical showdown. The researchers threw MedVersa into head-to-head battles against some of the leading, highly specialized AI models in the world.
And MedVersa didn't just hold its own. The results were overwhelmingly in its favor. Let's look at report generation first. MedVersa went up against top-tier models that were specifically designed only to write medical reports, models like Mera and BioMed-GPT. MedVersa beat them across multiple evaluation metrics when generating the findings section of a radiology report.
But the most staggering matchup to me was its battle against a model called MedPol-MM. This is a classic David and Goliath story. MedVersa actually outperformed MedPol-MM on the RADGraph metric, which measures how well the AI captures clinical entities and their relationships.
Yes.
MedVersa scored 28.0 compared to MedPol-MM's 26.7.
And to give some context to those numbers, in the world of elite AI benchmarking, a 1.3-point difference isn't just statistical noise.
Yeah.
It's a massive, definitive lead. It's like winning a marathon by a full mile.
But the crazy part isn't just that it won, it's how it won. MedPolM is an absolute giant. It has tens of billions of parameters, which are essentially the artificial synapses in the AI's brain. MedPolM is roughly 10 times larger than MedVersa.
10 times.
MedVersa is pulling off expert-level performance with a fraction of the bulk.
Which, again, translates to real-world utility. A massive, bloated model requires a server farm to run. A smaller, leaner model like MedVersa could theoretically be run on a local server in a rural hospital. But it wasn't just text generation where MedVersa dominated.
Right, the vision tasks were practically a clean sweep. In identifying chest pathologies, MedVersa beat out specialized models like DAM and BioMed-GPT. In classifying skin lesions, it crushed it with a remarkable F1 score of 0.772. And just to translate that out of AI jargon, the F1 score basically measures an AI's ability to catch the real diseases without causing a bunch of false alarms. It is the ultimate balance of precision and recall.
It also dominated in object detection. It beat a leading detection model called YOLO by 9% for finding chest pathologies and by 6.5% for locating anatomical structures.
And when we say object detection, what we really mean for you, the patient, is the AI's ability to actually draw a precise box around a tumor on your scan so the surgeon knows exactly where to look. It is 9% better at drawing that box than the specialized standard. Not to mention the open-ended
It's
question.
like visual question answering.
Right. When asked to look at a complex pathology slide and answer a random open-ended medical question about it, MedVersa was accurate 46.5% of the time, absolutely burying the specialist BioMed-GPT, which only scored 28.0%.
This raises an important question, though. Beating other algorithms in a sterile digital testing environment is one thing, but medicine is practiced by humans, on humans. The true test of any medical AI is how it performs when evaluated by actual doctors in a chaotic clinical workflow.
Which brings us to the ultimate test, and frankly, the most exciting part of this entire paper, the blinded clinical study. This was basically the Pepsi challenge for doctors.
That's a great way to describe it. The researchers gathered 10 board-certified radiologists. These are highly trained experts with an average of about 7 years of clinical experience. They handed them a massive stack of chest x-ray reports. Some were written by human attending physicians, and some were generated entirely by MedVersa.
But the radiologists evaluating them had absolutely no idea which was which.
Exactly. It's the only way to remove the inherent biases doctors might have against AI-generated text. If they know a computer wrote it, they might scrutinize it more harshly. And the statistics from this blinded evaluation are incredibly revealing. When looking at all the cases combined, the expert radiologists rated the AI-generated reports and the human-written reports as clinically equivalent 64% of the time.
Over 6 out of 10 times, seasoned experts couldn't find a meaningful clinical difference between the AI and their human colleagues. That is huge. But for normal routine studies, the scans where the patient is healthy and everything is fine, that equivalence skyrocketed to 91%.
9 times out of 10, the AI's report on a healthy patient was functionally indistinguishable from an expert human's. It proves the AI is highly capable of handling the high-volume, routine work that frankly eats up a massive portion of a radiologist's day.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The AI is not perfect, and I really respect how transparent the researchers were about this. When they looked at the abnormal, highly complex studies, the x-rays where there were tricky pathologies, multiple overlapping issues, or ambiguous findings, the human reports were preferred 42% of the time.
Right.
The AI-generated reports were only preferred 10% of the time in those really complex cases.
This is such a vital data point because it frames exactly how we should view AI in medicine right now. It is not about replacing the doctor. What this data shows is that AI is an incredible filtering tool. It is perfect for efficiently clearing out the routine, normal exams. But human expertise, human intuition, and a doctor's ability to synthesize highly nuanced visual anomalies remain completely irreplaceable.
It's a partnership. The AI acts like a superpowered resident. It handles the bulk of the routine paperwork, freeing up the human expert to spend their brain power on the tough cases, on the patients who actually need that deep, focused human attention.
And the researchers proved this partnership works in a second study detailed in the paper, a real-world user study. They had these radiologists sit down at their workstations and actually use different tools to write reports in real time. They tested MedVersa, they tested OpenAI's massive GPT-4 model, and they tested the standard dictation templates that doctors currently use.
First of all, the safety metrics from that user study were incredible. MedVersa actually reduced clinically relevant discrepancies, which means it reduced urgent or emergent medical errors by 20% compared to using GPT-4o.
Because MedVersa is specifically trained on medical data and clinical reasoning, whereas GPT-4o, despite being incredibly smart, is a broad, general-purpose model that can hallucinate or miss subtle clinical context. But the other massive finding from this user study was the sheer impact on physician burnout.
The time savings. MedVersa saved the top users up to 50 minutes per 100 studies they reviewed. If you extrapolate that out, it translates to a 5% to 10% reduction in their total daily workload.
I want to pause on that because saving 50 minutes in a hospital setting is not just a convenience, that is an eternity.
Right. What does 50 minutes actually look like for a doctor? It's the difference between actually eating lunch or running on empty. It's the time to go sit down, hold a scared patient's hand, and carefully explain a diagnosis to them instead of staring at a computer monitor, furiously typing up negative findings for an hour.
And the irony is, while everyone assumes any AI will speed things up, using GPT-4o actually increased the time costs for some of those doctors.
Wait, it slowed them down?
Yes. They had to spend so much time hunting through the GPT reports to correct non-medical formatting or fix subtle clinical errors. AI in healthcare shouldn't just be about raw speed. If an AI writes a report fast but increases the doctor's cognitive load because they have to heavily edit it, it fails. MedVersa proved that a dedicated generalist model actually reduces cognitive load. It gives healthcare workers their brain space back.
Which means fewer mistakes, less burnout, and ultimately a much better experience for you when you are sitting in that exam room. It all sounds like magic, but we do have to ground ourselves. I want to temper the excitement just a bit by looking at the paper's stated limitations, because no technology, no matter how groundbreaking, is flawless right out of the gate.
That's right. As versatile as MedVersa is, there are clear technical constraints right now. The most prominent one involves the training data. While it compiled 91 data sets, the vast majority of that data is heavily dominated by chest x-rays.
So it's an absolute genius at looking at lungs, but what about everything else?
It can handle other modalities. It can look at CT scans, MRIs, and ultrasounds. But right now, its capabilities in those specific areas are mostly limited to segmentation tasks.
Meaning just drawing outlines.
Exactly. It can confidently draw an outline around an organ or a tumor on an MRI, but it isn't quite ready to generate the deep, comprehensive multi-paragraph diagnostic reports for an MRI that it can easily do for an X-ray. It's a generalist, but its resume is still a bit lopsided toward chest imaging.
And there's also the issue of bias, right? Like any AI, there's a risk of demographic bias depending entirely on the quality and diversity of the training data. But beyond the data, there's a persistent technical issue of what we call the black box problem. The very architecture we were praising earlier, the head chef orchestrator seamlessly bouncing between vision modules, creates some major interpretability challenges.
Yes, and in medicine, interpretability is everything. A doctor cannot simply accept an AI's answer because the computer says so. They are legally and ethically signing their name to that diagnosis. They need to know exactly why the AI made that decision in order to trust it.
They need to see the math.
Exactly. If the multi-module interaction inside MedVersa is too complex to unpack, if we can't see the exact breadcrumbs of how the language model decided to trigger the 3D segmentation module, it creates a barrier to widespread clinical trust.
So what does this all mean? To summarize our deep dive today, MedVersa represents a massive, undeniable leap forward in medical technology. By using a large language model not just to write text, but to act as a brilliant orchestrator, handling both text and complex visual tasks simultaneously, we finally have a flexible, single foundation model.
We do.
We have a tool that matches and often beats hyper-specialist AIs, clears out routine medical paperwork flawlessly, and most importantly, gives doctors back their absolute most valuable resource, their time.
It truly is a remarkable proof of concept for the future of generalist medical AI. I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, one drawn directly from the researchers' stated goals for where this technology goes next. Right now, MedVersa is mastering medical images and clinical text, but the researchers plan to eventually incorporate your electronic health records, your continuous wearable data, and even your genetic information into this exact same generalist model.
Wow. All of it fed to the exact same head chef.
So, consider this. What happens to the very nature of a medical diagnosis when a single AI assistant can instantly cross-reference your current chest x-ray with your entire lifetime medical history, your daily heart rate data, and your unique genetic code? It won't just be finding tumors. It will be connecting dots that no human specialist could ever possibly hold in their head at one single time.
A completely holistic, instant view of your entire biological reality. That is an incredible thing to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the future of medicine. We hope you walk away feeling a little more informed and maybe a little more hopeful about the tools your doctors will be using tomorrow. Until next time, stay curious.